If a conservative falls in a forest of peaceful rioters, does it even make a sound? Not if Silicon Valley has its say. As the election looms near, big tech is set to do everything in their power to make sure that the right is silent as the left gets violent. But first,
Never tell them who I am. Well, how dare I'm a man. 6 shooters in both my hands. I'm a cold-blooded brother, a real bad mother. Watch out, honey, here I am.
big tech has become a runaway behemoth with accountability to no one. They are very ideologically driven, and they think that it is upon them to socially engineer our entire society, starting with our politics. Now, unfortunately, from Matt Gaetz here, he says that Congress is not going to rein in big tech because Congress is owned by big tech. And this really shouldn't be a surprise to anybody watching this video, because we have all seen the videos of executives from big tech going to testify before Congress and sitting there blatantly lying. Everybody knows they're lying, and yet there are no reprisals whatsoever. But what we're getting from Matt Gaetz here is essentially that it looks like no matter whether Trump wins or loses, we are not going to get the Section 230 reform that we've all been praying for. And it's really, they've gone off the rails. Over the course of the Trump administration, and the media has a big part to do in this too, because after the 2016 election, everybody on the left was looking for a scapegoat, who to blame for Trump's unprecedented election victory. Someone finally uprooted the establishment, and who can we blame for it? And of course, a lot of fingers were pointed at big tech, Facebook in particular. And it's funny because the right does very, very well on social media, far better than the left. We see that on, by things like the left can't meme. And we know that the left can't meme because they don't have any sense of humor. And everything that they write is, all their memes are pedantic. You get that wall of text where it's like, oh God, it's like I'm reading a book here. And there's no humor to it. And it's all, it's all just lies and taken out of context examples of certain things to try to make the left-wing point. Because the left doesn't do any of their own research. In fact, the left gets most of their news from memes, specifically from Occupy Democrats. And that, I think that's actually in 2018, that was the largest source of information for the left, was Occupy Democrats. And even, I think it was the Washington Post, who do the Pinocchios, or maybe it was PolitiFact. I think it was PolitiFact actually said that they have zero factual basis. They're one of the worst outlets for information. Yet, nobody fact checks that. Nobody fact checks them. The only people who get fact checked are the right. Despite the fact that, Mark Zuckerberg says, oh, well, we shouldn't be the arbiters of truth, yet then they turn around and act as the arbiters of truth. One of the fact checkers and censors at Twitter has a track record of talking about how Trump is literally Hitler. How are you going to get unbiased fact checking from these people? You can't. So we have here from Breitbart, and I've got a couple articles from Breitbart here because they cover a lot of this the tech issues here. So Congress cannot be trusted to take on big tech's political censorship because Silicon Valley has purchased politicians' compliance through lobbying, warned Representative Matt Gaetz, author of Firebrand: Dispatches from the Front Lines of the MAGA Revolution. That's an awesome title, actually. Offering his comments on Tuesday's edition of SiriusXM's Breitbart News Daily with host Alex Marlow. And that is, that is an awesome title for a book. And it is kind of funny because there is something about the whole Trump presidency that does feel like a second American Revolution. It feels like, for decades now, we've had this entrenched establishment with all the gatekeepers that would decide who got to enter the political ring and who got to succeed in that realm. And then Trump comes in completely outside the establishment. Nobody wanted him, and yet the American people, he captured America in a way that nobody else has ever been able to. And it's been amazing. But we have seen that the establishment, big tech, media, all the rhinos in the Republican Party, the Democrats, academia, all of the institutions who have been taken over by this left-wing ideology have been just absolutely screeching since 2016 and doing everything in their power to get it back without realizing that they would be better off just joining the MAGA revolution. Because it's a losing battle. Everything they have done has failed. Yet they continue to disrupt, to obstruct. The will of the American people is on the side of Donald Trump. The only people who are against Donald Trump are the ones who have been brainwashed by the propaganda of this concerted effort by all of these institutions. They'd be better off just saying, well, this is the winds of change, let's go with it. But anyways, back to this article. Congress is not going to rein in big tech because Congress is bought by big tech. Gates said, there are simply too many members of the House and Senate who are beholden to big tech, either because of political donations or because their family members are getting employed by big tech. And we saw this during the Obama administration. Google got incredibly friendly with the Obama administration. I believe they visited the White House over 400 times, and many times you saw Google executives in the White House multiple times in a week. And you're going to tell me that there's not any sort of collusion or concerted effort between Democrat politicians and big tech? They basically had their own bedroom in the West Wing of the White House. They were there all the time. And, you know, the whole hiring of family members, you know, this is it feels like corruption, which is how the left operates. They operate on corruption. You have all of these powerful political institutions that go to government and say, do what we want, and we'll either provide your family members with lucrative employment, or once you're out of office, we'll provide you with lucrative deals, as we can see from the Obama's $60 million Netflix deal that they did nothing to earn in terms of filmmaking and their prowess in that realm. They just turned their political office into a cash machine. But that's what the establishment does. So China similarly procures political influence across America by establishing financial ties, including employment, with family members of politicians. Speaking of Biden, yes, Hunter Biden flew in with Joe Biden into China on Air Force Two and flew out with a $1.5 billion equity deal. Blaze TV actually just put out a good documentary. It's about 40 minutes long. I think it's called Riding the Dragon, that details all of the corrupt financial ties between the Bidens and China. And many of those actually have to do with positioning China ahead of America in certain strategic geographical locations, like copper mines in, I believe it was the Congo. It was some African country that Joe Biden and the Biden family are actively selling us out to. We saw that in Ukraine, too, with Hunter Biden getting that board seat on Burisma despite having absolutely zero background in energy. The Democrats are susceptible to this, and I'm not saying the Republicans aren't either, but it seems to be more the mode of operation between the bigwig Democrat operatives, the Joe Bidens, the Hillary Clintons. I mean, God, we all know Hillary Clinton's selling out America. I mean, she sold 20% of our uranium deposits to Russia in the Uranium One deal after getting, I think, $500,000 for a speaking engagement from them. For the Clinton Foundation. The Clinton Foundation. The Clinton Foundation is nothing more than the Clinton pocket, than the Clintons' pockets. So Gates goes on. What we need is a focus on appointments to the FCC and to the FEC with people who understand the extent to which big tech bias is actually election interference, and it is also a violation of our communication standards that they wouldn't fall under certain liabilities under the Communications Decency Act. And that really is true. I mean, big tech has actually, their censorship and the singular direction with which it goes to the right. I move my hand this way because it's your right. To the right is tantamount to election interference. It's nothing short of that. They're trying to sway the election by algorithmically deciding what people see. Now, people like us, we probably don't actually see it because we are, through our actions on social media, they can tell that we are definitively on the right. And so with places like YouTube, they're still going to show us those, all the conservative videos because it's still screen time and ad revenue for them. And they know that they're not going to change it. So they show us all the stuff that we want to see. But it's the independents, the moderates, the people who are not necessarily politically engaged. They're never going to see our stuff show up. And we don't even see that that's happening. We look at it and we say, oh, what are you talking about? They're showing me all the conservative stuff. I got Occupy Democrats, right? Or Occupy Democrats Logic, which is kind of an Occupy Democrats rebuttal page. Shows up at the top of my Facebook feed all the time. Well, that's because Facebook knows where I stand and they're not going to change it. So they trick us and they let people like us actually see the information. And then the people, without us realizing that other people who aren't necessarily, they don't have the data as being politically on the right, they don't ever get to see any other information. They don't see anything that counteracts the propaganda narrative that is instituted by the, institutions. But I do think this is interesting, focusing on the FCC and the FEC. Now, I don't know a whole lot about what powers they actually have over big tech. But if there's anything that we have learned from the Trump administration and this new wave of Republicans who are kind of the Trump-era Republicans, the younger crowd of Republicans, is that they are getting very clever in ways of circumventing the old guard and finding new ways to get around what were once barriers. And so I'd have to look into this a bit more, the whole FCC, FEC situation here, but maybe that's another way. Maybe Section 230 reform is kind of the low-hanging fruit that's not going to bear, well, gotta keep repeating myself, that's not going to bear any fruit. And maybe certain things like this are the better way to go. I don't know enough about it, so I'd like to hear more. But he says, don't count on Congress to ever solve this problem. So yeah, ever solve it. So that's whether Trump wins or not. Gates said, we need to direct focus on the appointments to these boards. And it's why the second term of President Trump is so important, because a lot of these boards have staggered terms. So it sounds like there's going to be vacancies coming up on these boards during the second year or the second term of Trump's presidency. And we need to be able to fill those with like-minded people. And actually, I was going to go on a tangent about filling boards on the Federal Reserve, but I'm not going to get into all that right now. So, but we have this next article here. Facebook says it will restrict posting if elections cause unrest, and that's what I saw before. They're not going to restrict people on the left. We've already seen people on the right get banned off of social media every single day, and they'll do it in sweeping moves. Where they'll ban thousands of people on the right. Whether it's all the Q stuff or whether it's the Proud Boys or Gavin McInnes or Alex Jones or any of that stuff. I've gotten flagged for a Kyle Rittenhouse meme that said I was promoting violence, even though it didn't promote violence. Meanwhile, you could have Antifa and Black Lives Matter go out and just organize all of their riots where they burn down people's properties and attack people in the streets. And social media, these big tech companies have no problem with that. None of them get taken down. So we know what direction the wind is blowing here. We can see what direction that that weather vane is pointing. So Facebook announced this week that it may restrict certain aspects of its platform following November's general election as part of a larger effort to limit social unrest. A spokesperson for Facebook suggested that executives including Sheryl Sandberg and Mark Zuckerberg may censor specific information if they believe it is likely to heighten political tensions following the election. Well, you're not going to have political tensions if you just silence the right, because it's just going to be a bunch of lefties in an echo chamber, which is what they've essentially created on social media already, at least on places like Twitter. So, according to a report by the Financial Times, Facebook announced this week that it will restrict the circulation of content following November's election to curb violence and social unrest. The announcements follow efforts by Facebook to address concerns from those who have alleged that the platform aids in voter suppression and promotes election misinformation. So, the whole idea of the misinformation comes from the media push on social media in 2016, blaming the entire thing on Russian misinformation. All they've done is taken Russian out of it. But that is the root of all of this. And I remember in episode 7 of the old Revved Up that I used to do, I did a whole episode on big tech, and it was something like 150 Facebook ads or something that even mentioned Donald Trump that were found to be from the Russians. That does not sway the election. What does sway the election is changing what millions upon millions upon millions of people see and making sure that they never see one side of the argument from the people who are actually supporting the President of the United States of America. That could sway millions of votes. So there are some break glass options available to us if there really is an extremely chaotic and still worse set of violent circumstances. But what they're going to censor is going to be us showing videos of the violence. That's what they're going to censor. They're not going to censor the organization of these violence or all the anti-Trump stuff that whips these people up. They're not going to censor any of that. They're just going to make sure that we don't see the violence so that we can't report on it. And so that maybe we think, oh, wow, there is no problem anymore. Oh, unless then, of course, then Trump's going to go ahead and he's going to send in the troops to quell the violence, but then they're going to let all the videos of that make it look like Trump is sending out the stormtroopers to beat up peaceful protesters. All those videos are going to be allowed. Clegg admitted that high-ranking Facebook executives will be in charge of content censorship decisions. This is America. We don't censor here. We're not supposed to censor. These should be public forums, public platforms. Like I said, big tech is operating with utter impunity and no accountability to anybody at all. They're essentially taking over our country. This is a corporatist coup that they are trying to implement here. So Facebook CEO Sheryl Sandberg and CEO Mark Zuckerberg will have the authority to censor posts if they believe they are likely to spread misinformation. Who gets to decide what's misinformation? We have seen time and time again the failure of fact checkers, whether it's with mainstream legacy media companies or with social media. There was somebody took a picture of a state plaque in Texas, I believe it was, or maybe it was at a monument in Texas, and it was a quote from George Washington. And Facebook put a fact check on a picture of a plaque with a George Washington quote. These people are nuts. And so we have here also from Breitbart's Alum Bakari, who just wrote a book on all this stuff. I mentioned it in another recent video, which, it's kind of weird because it seems like a lot of my videos calling out big tech don't seem to get a whole lot of viewership either. I don't think that has anything to do with you guys. I think that might have something to do with, big tech censoring it. So Bakari, big tech prepares the public for a rigged election. Now, Silicon Valley whiz kids aren't, or I guess I'll read the byline here. That's actually a quote from this video that I'm going to show in just a minute here. So, Silicon Valley whiz kids aren't known for their social skills, so perhaps Zuckerberg revealed more than he meant to. Nevertheless, the elite's plan for you, the American public, is now laid bare. This is going to be the most rigged, manipulated election in history. They're going to prepare you ahead of time. They're going to make you think that it's normal. Now, we have already had the media preparing us for a scenario where on election night it's going to look like Trump wins, but then all the mail-in ballots are going to come in, and then Biden's really going to win. So we're being primed for this, and what's going to happen is the Democrats are going to try to steal the election, and then when the results come in saying that, oh, Biden wins, they're going to be, see, we told you this was going to happen, guys. I mean, we knew it. We knew it. Why didn't you? We told you it was going to happen. No, it's because you rigged it to happen that way. In fact, Zuckerberg went further. He said that Facebook plans to tell the American public that claiming victory on election night is not normal. Yeah, it is. As far as, at least in my lifetime, we've always known who the victor was at the end of the election night. The fact that we're not going to is going to create all of the chaos and unrest. So they're trying to prepare us while also censoring things that they think are going to create chaos and unrest. It's you guys that are creating the chaos and unrest. If one of the candidates in any of the races claims victory before there is a consensus result, then we are going to add some additional some informational context to the post, directly saying that there's no consensus to the results yet. That basically means they're going to wait until the Democrats can manufacture enough fraudulent ballots to win the election, and then they're going to go ahead and declare Biden won. That's how this is going to go. Mark my words. So we actually have this video here with Mark Zuckerberg. Let me make sure the volume's up.
Yeah, you said on election day it's over, but it might not be, right?
I think the dynamic that you're talking about is really important, which is that we may not know the final result on election night. One of the things that I think we and other media need to start doing is preparing the American people that there's nothing illegitimate about this election taking additional days or even weeks to make sure that all the votes are counted. In fact, that might be important to make sure that this is a legitimate and fair election. So we're going to do a bunch of different messaging around that just to make sure that people know that that's normal. So if one of the candidates
That's normal.
in any of the races claims victory before there's a consensus result, then we're going to add some informational context to that post directly, saying that there's no consensus result yet. I think that this is important because there is, unfortunately, I think, a heightened risk of civil unrest in the period, between voting and a result being called or after that. And I just think that we need to be doing everything that we can to reduce the chances of violence or civil unrest in the wake of this election.
First of all, is it just me or does Mark Zuckerberg look like he has a gun to his head? I don't know what's going on there, but he looked like he was absolutely terrified of something. I don't know what. But he's talking about we want to make sure that this is a fair election. You know what would make sure this was a fair election? Vote in person like every other election. I'm going to get more into the mail-in balloting in just a minute because I think it does so in this article, so I don't want to get ahead of things here. But Zuckerberg and other progressive elites are aware that a Biden victory could hinge on vote by mail. They also know how vulnerable vote by mail is, so they're not worried about making sure that it is a legitimate election. They're making sure it's a Biden election. Democrats, in particular, are aware of this because they take advantage of it. A former operative for the party turned whistleblower recently told the New York Post how he spent years leading a team of staff that replaced voters' mail... Oh, yeah, I did a video on this whole thing. So, yeah, a former operative for the party became a whistleblower and told the New York Post how he spent years leading a team of staff. That's a weird way to say it. A team that replaced voters' mail-in ballots with fraudulent ones, paid homeless people to vote Democrats, and made connections with nursing homes so that he could fill out ballots on behalf of elderly residents. That's what you get with mail-in balloting. He also actually called out Michael Bloomberg and talked about how in the third term of Michael Bloomberg's mayoral campaign, was running for his third term as mayor of New York City, he paid $174 a vote for each fraudulent vote. And this guy laughed and said, I could have gotten it for 30 cents on the dollar. I could have gotten you those votes. So, and also, a local news station in Pennsylvania, a swing state, conducted a vote-by-mail experiment that showed up to 3% of mock ballots were lost in the mail, a margin that could easily influence a tight race. Absolutely. Absolutely. See, what we got to realize is that there's going to be these tight races where all they have to do is fraudulently defraud the vote by a few thousand, and a couple thousand in a state here, a few thousand in a state here, a couple thousand in a state there, and that can swing the entire election. So I think it might be easier for them to steal the election than we're giving them credit for. Just no matter how many Trump people come out, it's going to have to be that these swing states really are a massive silent majority so that they cannot cheat enough in these swing states. So everybody's got to go out and cast that vote for Donald Trump. In Michigan's primary election, over 10,000 ballots were rejected, 846 because the voter linked to the ballot was dead. Gee, nothing suspicious there. You know, my thumbnail for a video I made, I think 2 days ago or 3 days ago, it was a picture of a graveyard with Democrats in, and I asked the question, is this Democrats' biggest base? And starting to look like it. Starting to look like the dead are the Democrats' biggest base. But as Zuckerberg no doubt knows, big tech's stranglehold on the flow of information will also manipulate votes in favor of Democrats. Of course they know that it's going to manipulate votes in favor of Democrats. In interviews for my book, Deleted, Big Tech's battle to erase the Trump movement and steal the election, sources inside Facebook, Google, and other big tech companies spoke of a relentless effort inside Silicon Valley to harness technology to prevent the re-election of Donald Trump, often in ways that can't be detected from the outside. Using the algorithm. The company is now openly purging... So this is about Google. The company is now openly purging political search suggestions that benefit conservatives. One of the suggested search results of Google for "you can vote" was, until recently, "you can vote yourself into socialism." The first part of the phrase, "you can vote yourself into socialism, but you can't vote yourself out of socialism." Google has now removed this search term as election misinformation. So saying you can vote yourself into socialism but can't vote yourself out of socialism is election misinformation? I'm sorry, I think we have, plenty of countries, plenty of precedent to show that that is not election misinformation. So, yeah, talking about Facebook. 70% of the videos that people watch on YouTube around the world are suggested by their up next algorithm, said Epstein. Epstein is I don't know, somebody. He's a psychologist. Not the Epstein. So the power they have to shift opinions and votes is unbelievable. If you're strongly opinionated, yeah, they're just going to feed you what you want because they can keep your eyes on the screen and it's traffic. That's worth money. The issue is, what are they showing the undecided people, the vulnerable people, the uncommitted people? How much power do they have to shift opinions, purchases, votes with those people? I am telling you, I think this is going to be the largest behavioral effect ever discovered. And we have a new story out about YouTube has a new development, and this could very likely affect my channel. It could be, I right now I'm a very small channel, so I'm probably going to fly under the radar. But I don't know. YouTube is about to age restrict way more videos. And that's why also, before I get into this part, let me just tell you guys, I am also on BitChute. So if you're on BitChute, go ahead and follow me on there, because if I do get the boot here, all I'm going to have is BitChute. And then I also just recently joined Rumble. I don't know how big Rumble is. I actually like the platform on Rumble better. I've only been on it for a couple days. I just uploaded the past couple days videos on there. So I'm still kind of figuring out what Rumble is really all about and how good it is. But I know Dan Bongino just bought a large stake, or at least a stake in Rumble. So it's rumble.com as an alternative to YouTube, because he's sick of the censorship. So YouTube is rolling out more artificial intelligence powered technology to catch more videos that may require age restrictions, meaning more videos will be asked to sign into their accounts to verify their age before watching. And when it comes to conservative political commentary, they tend to age restrict and demonetize just about everything. So this is going to greatly affect anybody on YouTube on the right. So people like me, people like Steven Crowder, people like Michael Knowles, and Tim Pool's not even on the right, but he still has to deal with all this stuff. So the company's preparing for there to be some mistakes in labeling, as in the case with any rollout of AI moderation tech. Oh God, AI moderation tech. Like, just hearing those words, we're becoming a technocratic dystopian country because of these companies. And they are given carte blanche to rule over our democracy, to steal the election. And as part of the changes, people watching YouTube videos embedded on third-party sites will be redirected to YouTube to sign in and verify their age. One of the biggest questions facing creators in YouTube's partner program, those who are able to monetize their videos, is whether these moderation measures will have an effect on their money-making potential. They absolutely will. Because it's going to completely... So YouTube team doesn't believe so because the majority of the videos it anticipates to receive automatic age restrictions are likely to violate the company's advertiser-friendly guidelines. Basically, those videos would have already have limited or no ads according to YouTube, which it's all going to be people on the right. You know, they go on to say that the rollout comes as YouTube tries to address global criticism from concerned parents groups and advocacy boards over the website being unsafe for children. That is total BS. That is a lie. This has everything to do with politics. There's a reason this is happening right before the election. And this is supposedly implemented today. Immediate implementation of this. And so it's actually probably one of the reasons why, despite the fact that I put out over 100 videos, I still haven't been able to crack 1,000 subscribers. Maybe it's because I suck at this. I don't know. I don't think I do. I think I'm decent at it. I don't think I'm the best at it by any means. But you would think that I would have more than 1,000 subscribers at this point. And I got to feel like it has to do a lot with my videos don't show up unless you are somebody who subscribes to my channel, has hit the notification bell. So please go ahead and do that if you haven't already, because big tech is all about censoring people like me. And I got a feeling there's going to come a day where they're just going to give me the boot. As well as many other people who are much bigger than me. I'll actually probably be one of the last ones to go simply because I don't have the following and I don't have the reach. But anyways, guys, like I said, please go ahead, hit the like button on this video because it still does help with the algorithm, especially when, you know, it's suggesting videos for people who are like-minded, who they're not trying to sway to Joe Biden. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit that notification bell. Share this video, although, you know, if they start age restricting the videos, one of the things that's going to mean is that people aren't going to be able to watch this embedded in another platform. So if you post this on Facebook, they're not just going to be able to click the play button on Facebook and be able to watch it within Facebook. They're going to send it, it's going to send you to YouTube where you have to be logged in. And not all people are logged in with YouTube accounts. So, yeah, Speaking of all the big tech companies, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Parler, follow me at Ram Thorburn. Also, there are links to my Subscribe Star, Patreon, and PayPal down in the description below. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.